Hello, this is Pastor Matthew Woods from Grace Lutheran Church in New Albany, Indiana. And this is the weekly devotion for February 23rd, 2026. Today's title, A Way Out of Temptation. So let's ask the question, what is temptation? Well, for all of us, it might mean different things, and we might get a lot of answers. But in a nutshell, I would propose that it is Satan's effort to separate us from God by enticing your sinful nature to act in a way that is opposed to the Word of God. Disobedience. Ever see any commercials? What are they trying to do? They are, in effect, trying to tempt you to buy what they're selling. They can't force it, they can't make you do it, but they can entice you. We call it marketing. It's so important to companies today that they are literally tracking our behavior with our phones and selling our information to one another. There is a goal in this, of course, to market us, to manipulate us, to find our weaknesses, and so on, to find out what we really want. But it should not be lost on us, by the way, that they're tracking our behavior, not our intentions. They are tracking our true character by what we post, by what we buy, by where we go on vacation, by our driving habits, and so on. If they can track, the thing is if they can track our character, perhaps then they can shape it also. Little nudges of temptation. And you see, the best marketer out there is Satan himself, whose goal is to shape our character into something that is ungodly. That's temptation. So we turn to Matthew chapter 4, which is paralleled in Luke chapter 4 and mentioned in Mark chapter 1. If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. After all, you're hungry. You've been fasting 40 days and 40 nights. Sounds innocuous enough. So what's behind the temptation? Well, first of all, we see how Satan works. Note this process of tempting took 40 days, very reflective, of course, the 40 years of Israel's wandering in the wilderness. In those conditions, Yahweh proved himself to Israel by providing manna and water, those basic provisions of food, something to eat, and saw to it that Israel had everything they needed. And yet, Satan often used the harsh environment to motivate the Israelites to grumble and complain and carry on against Moses and God. Here again is Israel. Israel is reduced to one. Israel is once again in the desert in the one person, Jesus. Everything is reduced to Jesus at this point. Satan waits till he's hungry, very hungry, and starving, in fact. And once again, his tactic was to get Jesus to look at the harsh conditions, to capitalize on the vulnerability. In this case, hunger, a very base need. You need some meat on those bones, Jesus. You need to eat. Satan is trying to reduce Jesus to one thing, to this one moment, to lose sight of the big picture. And you see, that's the temptation here. Think only about your hunger, to think only about this need, this want. Act now. Time is running out, right? We hear that a lot. Or the deal is only for this day only. The clock is running, right? Marketers use a sense of urgency to get us to impulse, to hurry up and make a decision before we think too long on it. Meaning that they want us to focus on the moment by getting our emotions running high, often trying to incite fear or anxiety or urgency, of course. You need to buy gold now to secure your future. How many times have we heard that? Oh, yeah, gold's gone up. But is that all we need? You need to eat, Jesus. If you are the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. You can do that. You can take care of yourself. Satan is trying to get Jesus to focus on the harsh conditions, only the rocks, and if you will, the rocks that are available, right? God, God has brought water from the rock, right? Why not bread? Focus on the hunger, Jesus, not the cross. Focus on yourself, Jesus, not the Father. Who cares what the other will is? Your dad will understand if you get some food here. But that's not the point, right? Jesus was meant to do this 40 days of fasting and testing to prove that he would not fall and that he would keep God's plan. Now, in Genesis chapter 3, the same tactic was used, by the way. God provided fruit from all over the Garden of Eden. They could eat anything they wanted. It was a lush land. They didn't even need to wear shoes or clothes. It was so perfect. And all Adam and Eve could focus on was the one tree they weren't supposed to eat from. And that's what Satan got them to think about over and over again and obsess about. And when when he asked Eve about this, Eve repeats back to Satan what God actually said. She knew what God said. If you shall eat of it, or you will not. You shall not eat of it, or you will die. And Satan, of course, intensifies the interest in this one tree. It's like putting warning labels on videos or on YouTube or out there. It actually heightens the interest, if you will. God's warning is not to eat. God's warning not to eat turned into a desire to find out why. Really? Be like God, knowing the difference between good and evil? You shall be like God. That's enticing. So they ate. But before they ate, they saw that it was desirable for gaining wisdom, and they ate. Satan worked on them until that fruit was the only thing they could see or think about, even more so than God himself. Everything else just disappeared until that was it. So along with this is the distinction of being tempted and falling into temptation, right? Let's keep that in mind also today. Jesus was tempted, but he never fell into temptation, never entertained the desire to feed himself with the stones. On the other hand, when Eve saw the fruit and saw that it was desirable for gaining wisdom, she took it and ate it. She let that desire linger in her heart, and it changed her focus from God to herself. So the fruit was most important. Jesus never changed his desire, by the way. His heart never turned away from the Father's will. And here is the first major lesson today and for this series. Jesus kept the big picture in his heart. He didn't let himself get lured into just one moment of hunger. It is written, he says, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. You see, the big picture is more than a meal. So the question about things we chase after, we have to ask, is this part of God's picture? Is this part of God's will in my life? And then to think it through. Is this what God would approve of? Is this necessary? Is this the kind of thing that would truly benefit more than just me? And should I go through with this? What are the long-term consequences or benefits for what I'm doing? You know, if we pull back from our heart and the desires and the enticements, think it through and do the pros and cons, for example, we might have a very different answer than just staring at the fruit or the one thing we desire most. God's given us a head as well as a heart, and so we should use that and keep that big picture in mind. God willing, that's what we will be able to do, and we'll be able to overcome temptation every time it comes to us. So there you have it, our first lesson. Next week, we'll go into the second temptation and talk about that a little bit more, and the importance of worshiping the Lord and serving him only. So the Lord be with you this week, and especially as we go through this season of Lent, and may God bless you. Okay, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.